If you already have or are considering a matte finished for your vehicle, there's a lot to consider, and I think this video may be very helpful for you. So today we're going to be talking about long-term protection and care for matte or satin finished vehicles, talking ceramic coatings, talking paint protection film, and other things you may need to consider before you pull the trigger on one of these paints, because to be honest, they can be very, very tricky to deal with. So welcome back to another out of spec detailing video. Let's jump into it. So I want to have a sit down conversation with you guys and give my impressions on matte and satin finished vehicles, how you should protect them if you're considering getting one, because I've seen a lot of things through my years as a professional detailer. I've worked on many of these vehicles, definitely not as many, gloss painted vehicles that come through. I really specialize in paint, doing paint corrections, getting paint absolutely dialed in, no scratches, smooth as can be, ceramic coating them. So that's really my specialty. But on the flip side is these vehicles need a lot more attention in different ways. So we're gonna run through all of that. Now this is a part 2 follow-up to a video I just made that just went up on washing this vehicle. Matte and satin finished vehicles, you have to maintain very, very differently than gloss. There's a lot of similarities, but a lot different. So I'm seeing a lot more of these cars come into the market. I think Audi, Mercedes, BMW, and even Kia and Hyundai are offering these paints at a really inexpensive cost to do so. I don't remember exactly what they are, but they're really inexpensive. And a lot of people decide, yeah, that looks really cool. It's sitting on the dealer lot. Man, that matte paint looks so cool. I would love to have that. A year later, the car looks horrendous because they're not maintaining it, not washing it properly, not doing all of those things. So if you're considering doing this, you need to consider, how are you going to wash this car? So for one, here at the shop, we're in an enclosed environment. I've got all the tools, all the safe soaps, things like that. Say you live here in Colorado. What do you do in December when it's 20 degrees, when it's 30 degrees? Are you sitting in your driveway washing an ice cube? No, I don't think you are. So typically what I see a lot of people do is they option this paint, they take it through a touchless car wash. All of a sudden that touchless car wash is using a lot of gloss enhancing shampoos, quick waxes that they spray on there to make your car shiny. On this, that's exactly the opposite of what you want to do. You want to use safe soaps that are not adding any gloss to it, that are gently cleaning and getting in there. So really need to take that into consideration for one. If you have a normal 2-bucket, 3-bucket method wash down, you've got space for it at your home, you're going to have zero issues with it. Now, let me also paint this picture of, okay, you just bought your new Hyundai Ioniq 5 and it's matte painted. You take it to Costco, somebody smacks a cart against it, they rub up against it, and it's got scratches on it. What do? Well, you can just buff those out, right? Absolutely not. That will completely and absolutely destroy the paint. So let me paint this picture for you. Under a microscope, gloss paint is like this. It's very flat. You do have orange peel in there, but overall, it's very flat. That's how it reflects into your eyes, it gets that glossy appearance to it. This, on the other hand, is more like a mountainscape, if you will. Very jagged, very kind of random all over the place, creating this effect to refract into your eyes and give that satin appearance. So, say you get a scratch down the side. It's permanently there. There's nothing you can do. You touch a polisher to this, you've got a glossy strip now on the side of your car, and that is irreversible damage. You use quick waxes that have a lot of these, gloss enhancers in them. You're taking those valleys, filling them up, and a lot of times this does irreversible damage to paint. So that's something to really consider. Now let me also say, you're in that same parking lot and somebody overshoots their parking spot and smacks your door, and now you need to get your car repainted. Where are you going to take that to get repainted? And a lot of the times what I've heard of happening is these paints, because of the jagged nature of them, are nearly impossible to paint match, to get the texturing right, to get the coloring right. And a lot of times you end up having to paint multiple panels around it, if not the entire car. And finding a body shop that's going to do that is far and few between. So you really need to consider that when you're doing it. Now, as far as protection, what can you do for these? Well, at the absolute bare minimum, I think you have to ceramic coat these cars. These being jagged like that hold a lot more dirt. This particular car, I just spent 2+ hours just washing it because they hold on to dirt so much more because of the jagged nature of the paint. It's not smooth, you get a lot more contamination buildup. The tricky thing with all that contamination, again, talking about scratches, if you go in there improperly wash this thing's gonna be swirled out. You know, you're sitting there scrubbing it, you're rubbing down those peaks, if you will. This stuff is very fragile to deal with, so you need to understand that, and it's very, very important. Now, when you're getting your car ceramic coated, there are different options. A lot of the times, a lot of the ceramic coatings for gloss finishes are meant to cover up a little bit of peaks and valleys and make it a lot glossier. So you have to use a matte or satin safe ceramic coating. Now, I've seen horror stories of people and detailers, even professional detailers, or so they say, ceramic coating a matte or satin paint and completely botching the install. The tricky thing with this paint, unlike gloss paint, if you get a high spot, if you miss an area on there, you can typically polish it off and recoat that panel and have no issues. On here, say you ceramic coat it, you leave a high spot, the coating cures, you can't do anything. You can't go in there with a polisher. Again, you're ruining that paint. And I've seen this like everywhere, and it becomes a real issue. So if you're wanting to get one of these, have it ceramic coated by a professional and make sure they're using the right ceramic coatings for it. So important to understand that. Now, my personal opinion, if you're wanting one of these, I would not do a ceramic coating. Completely contrary to what I just said, because I think you should 100% full XPEL or something similar satin wrap this in paint protection film. That's my personal opinion. So on this particular car, I reached out and got a quote for it, and I've seen anywhere between $7,500 and $10,000 for a full top of the line satin wrap on it. Now, the importance of that is, again, consider that you're at Costco, somebody smacks a card against it. If you have PPF on there, you have no issues. You can tear that off, replace that panel if it does get damaged. On here, you're starting to repaint areas. It is just an absolute nightmare. So my personal opinion, if you're gonna do this, be prepared to shell out for some serious money as far as paint protection film. Now, do I recommend doing only the high impact areas? To me, no, and I'll show you around this car why. There's areas on this car that have scratches that are permanently in this paint now, so I think it is absolutely, you just have to bite the bullet and spend the money. Now, I wanna bring up an interesting scenario that I had a long time ago in my detailing career at an Audi Porsche store. So we had a brand new Gen 2 Audi R8 V10 Plus, and it was painted in a like dark green satin finish paint. I believe it was over $10,000 for the option directly from Audi to have that paint. The funny thing is, the gloss version of that, which was the same exact color, just gloss, was either a $0 option or $1,000 or $2,000 for that specific paint. So this car came in, the dealership was like, I don't want to touch it, send it to Coleton, he's going to do his stuff on it. Great, no problem. We did a ceramic coating on it, looked fantastic, and the car went and lived up in Steamboat. This car came back 2 years later, and I just wanted to cry, to be honest. This car looked about as bad as I've ever seen a car. It was splotchy, there were scratches everywhere, the bumper was pitted, the whole side, like this car needed an entire repaint. What I'm getting at after this conversation is, if it were me and I wanted that matte or satin finish vehicle, why not just spend that small amount of money and then full XPEL wrap it, and then you tear that stuff off and you've got brand new paint underneath. Now, you guys know here at the shop, I'm not a huge fan of paint protection film for gloss cars. I don't want to get into that discussion, but we're talking more of the matte paint. So instead of spending all that money to get it, why not just wrap it in XPEL? And you know, on the other side is these newer paints are coming out and they're really inexpensive to get, you know, from Hyundai and Kia. and putting a full vinyl or the full PPF wrap on it can be very, very expensive, and I do understand that. But in a couple years, and I don't know what this particular paint was on this Polestar 1, say it was a $5,000 option. When you go to sell this car, is this car worth $5,000 more because it has the satin appearance to it? In my personal opinion, as a detailer, it would be valued less because I know how tricky these paints are to maintain and detail, and I know the paint's gonna be an absolute freaking mess. So in my opinion, from a value proposition, buy a glossy car and then do satin XPEL or something similar on it, and I think that makes a heck of a lot more sense. That's just my personal opinion. I know like BMW offers these frozen paints, of course, like this. I don't know how much they cost, but they can't be a $0 option, I'm not thinking. You guys will definitely let me know in the comments below. So that's my personal opinion on this paint, and I think you guys seriously need to consider this. I've got a few customers that I've talked to, you know, that have bought the EV6, the Ioniq 5 with these satin finishes, and they're like, I don't know what to do with this. And I've not been given any information by the dealership. They give me this booklet, says do this, don't do that. And I do those, but like the car still looks terrible. So at that point, yeah, you really, really need to think about this. My personal opinion as a detailer, full XPEL wrap these things, ceramic coat the top of it, and then just go for it. Just daily drive this thing, beat it up, tear it up, peel it off, put new stuff on, and you're good to go. Just in my opinion, it is a lot of money to get this look to be right and stay right for a long period of time. The last option for you guys is vinyl wrapping. Not my preferred way to go. I actually have a satin Audi Allroad that I personally wrapped. It's cool. The nice thing is it's a couple grand. You can tear it off, change the color. I think that's a more interesting way to go. So every 3 years you can get a new colored car if you like keeping cars a long time. But in reality, I see a lot of people keep cars 3 to 5 years. My clients here at the shop typically do not even keep their cars that long. I have professional car buyers, as I call them, and they are getting new cars every 6 months to a year, but still get them fully protected, and the cars look amazing when they go to sell them. So really something to consider here. If you guys have any questions, do let me know in the comments down below. Happy to give you suggestions on chemicals to use on these finishes. I'll definitely leave a link to the full wash video on this particular vehicle, talking about all the soaps I use, the process, all the tools you're gonna need. Lastly, before I go, I want to take you around this car and show you a few things. And I also want to mention, because I know somebody's going to ask this, well, what about doing just the high impact areas? So maybe do full hood, the rockers, the lower areas of the vehicle. My personal opinion is I'm going to show you some areas on here. Just do the whole darn thing if you want this finish. It's going to look a little bit different as well as far as the texturing. You may have more of a matte finish. You may have more of a satin finish. XPEL is one finish, so consider that. If you're going to do it, do the whole thing. But let me jump in and take you around this entire vehicle. So this particular vehicle, in all honesty, is surprisingly decent as far as how the paint looks. Now, there's things here and there I definitely want to show you guys and things to consider. So of course, this being naked paint, we've got some rock chips. These are nearly impossible to touch up. Again, to get that satin appearance, it makes it extremely, extremely difficult. We've got some rock chips here and there, so we could get touch-up paint for this, but in all honesty, it's not gonna look as good as it should. Or on something like a gloss painted vehicle, typically those touch-ups look a lot better, and I'm gonna have videos coming out on how to do that. Now this car just went on a cannonball run. If I didn't mention that before, look at this huge rock chip here. So this is permanently in the paint, of course, but let's keep walking around the vehicle and let me show you a few things. So in this area, I want you to notice these kind of scuffs. I hope they come through on camera. These are actually scratches and they are permanently in the paint. I tried to play around with these a little bit to see if they were just kind of surface, but nope, these are permanently scratched in the paint. So that's an area, if you were like, oh my gosh, somebody did this in a parking lot, they need to pay for it. You to try and fix this, nearly impossible. You're gonna have to repaint this, potentially that, the whole front bumper, and then you just like get into this huge thing and it happens again. Really not fun to deal with at all. Now, areas like this on matte doors, you can already see some discoloring happening here. Very, very common because you've got a lot of body oils in here in a high impact area you're constantly touching. Also noticing some of these edges getting a little bit shinier. Over time, again, these paints are going to change and evolve as you improperly wash them or you have people getting in and out of them. So I really want you to consider that. Again, we've got more scratching marks here. These are permanently in the paint. So few things going on that are really not ideal. You know, back here on the Polestar 1, we've got a big chunk missing out of this area. If that was, you know, gloss paint, I could go in there, wet sand that down, put some touch-up paint, and make it look as good as possible. But this is just another level of dealing with that. I believe it's this side as well. Yes, this side's quite bad. So see all these scratches in here? These do not come out at all. And again, you can't use any polishing abrasives, anything on this to even try and touch those up at all. It's gonna make a mess. This is gonna start to get glossy, just a pain in the butt. I'm also noticing down here, if you can see this, it's actually on both sides, which is kind of weird, but you're gonna consider that, smacking that every single time you get in and out of the car. Your other cars may not have that. Now this area, same thing going on here. These are permanently in the paint, so definitely need to consider that. Same thing going on with this door handle. You can see some discoloration. Now, I am surprised with this particular car. Again, it just went on the Cannonball run. If you guys didn't watch the wash video, you definitely should check it out. The whole front end looks like a bloody just massacre of bugs. It was absolutely disgusting. And I'm very impressed that this particular paint did not spot from those bug stains, which I'm really actually quite surprised. Now, that green Audi R8 I mentioned earlier, that thing was caked in bugs, permanently stained in the paint. So maybe good on Polestar for having really, really impressive paint. Again, guys, I think this finish is just one of the coolest things out there. I think it's insanely neat. But you guys really, if you are wanting a satin or matte finish vehicle, take this video into consideration because I think it may change your mind or it may give you some options to actually protect your car. So if you're all for it, have the money to do it, get one of these, full XPEL wrap it, you know, do the ceramic coating on top of the XPEL and have a ball with one of these cars. But anyways, that's my thoughts on protecting a satin and matte finish vehicle. Thanks for watching another out of spec detailing video. We'll see you in the next one very, very soon. Bye-bye.